Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Chauncey Hopkins, and I did a speech on epigenetics and trauma. Blunt force trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, childhood trauma, grief, historical trauma, and war trauma are among the many different types of traumatic experiences we may face in life. Trauma is generally defined as an event that induces intense fear, helplessness, or horror. In studies spanning over the past 60 years, researchers have been finding links between trauma and the body. This field of studies is called epigenetics. The Center for Disease Control defines epigenetics as the study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. In the next few minutes, we will go over epigenetic studies that present a deeper connection between trauma and your genes. Rachel Yehuda, a psychologist and professor of psychiatry and neuroscience at Mount Sinai Hospital, conducted a number of studies in her Jewish neighborhood of Holocaust survivors. Her findings shows that similarities between Vietnam veterans with PTSD and the Holocaust survivors. Later in her study, the children of the survivors had become a subject of interest. Her research had shown that children of parents with PTSD suffered 3 to 4 times more depression and anxiety, as well as more substance abuse. In recent years, Yehuda had co-authored studies with Cindy Ehlers, a neuroscientist at La Hala Scripps Research Institute. Their research, along with others, furthered the high-risk hypothesis for Native Americans. These studies have shown that Native Americans significantly endure more traumatic events, assault, accident, or rape than other Americans. As much as 94% more than the other subjects in the study. In a similar vein, Maria Yellowhorse Braveheart, a Lakota professor of social work, had coined the term historical trauma. During Maria's time on the Pine Ridge Reservation, her study subjects were social service providers and community leaders. 81% of the subjects had drinking problems, along with suicide, unmourned loss, survivor guilt, hypertension, and early death. Maria had mentioned that historical trauma spanned over 500 years of massacre, land theft, displacement, enslavement, and to the removal of Native American children from homes and then placed in residential schools. Many children in these residential schools had traumatic experiences that lived to tell about. We will cover child maltreatment and its effects in the next study. According to the study by Young J.C. and Whittam C.S., neglect is the most common form of child maltreatment. Child neglect is shown to affect short-term language and behavior. The long-term effects of neglect have resulted in depression and PTSD. Research by Jay Magala links early life adversities, or ELAs, and the increased risk in adulthood. Magala's findings show that traumatic events can carry on into adulthood and affect certain genes with unfavorable outcomes. Magala has shown reports from studies that genes and hormones may be turned on or off when children are subjected to trauma. For instance, a study conducted by Fujisawa et al. Had suggested individuals with childhood trauma had a certain gene that was affected. This gene in turn affects a hormone that can block typical development of the brain in its developing years. In conclusion, research has shown traumatic situations, whether experienced short-term or only once, can have a lasting effect on an individual. Magala noted that further investigations on a molecular level can assist in preventative measures in the area of childhood trauma. This would make way for innovations in the mental health field. As research shows, epigenetics and trauma have a bond that is more understood with every study. One day, we may have the key to unlock the on and off switch to trauma in our genes. It's amazing how far researchers have come to understanding these connections, and I can't deny that it would be a positive step in healing the deep unseen part of our beings. Thank you.